Hey guys, Michael Zed Johnson. I want to talk to you for a few minutes today about my experiences as a bully. Um, when I was in high school, but I want to go back further to when I was in elementary school, and it was my brother and my mother and myself, and we were moving all the time. We moved all over the country, from Oregon to Virginia and Tennessee, and back and forth a bunch, and changed schools all the time. And during that time period, my mother was in a lot of different relationships, and some bad relationships, some good relationships. And she was trying to teach me as a third grader to don't say anything unless you have something nice to say. Always do what's right, although it may not be the easiest, it's always right. Stand up for the weak, protect the weak, stand up and respect women and protect them when you can. And those were from lessons that she had learned where she had either been disrespected or abused or what have you in her relationships. She didn't want to raise young men that treated people the same way. So you fast forward to, I'm in high school, new student, we're living in the projects, we're extremely poor, right in the back of the bus, and there's 4 or 5 guys back there, and there was these 2 girls that lived in the projects with us, and they were twins, and used to get on the bus and we would call them gruesome twosome. And we would chant, gruesome twosome need to lose some. And then one of our friends or myself, someone would start it, and then someone else would jump in, and then the other guy, and then the other guy, and it would get louder, and the bus would go silent because we're just being so mean and disrespectful for no reason. Like you could hear a pin drop. It was like a library. And inevitably, every day that I remember, these young ladies would start crying. And they'd get off the bus crying, and they would go home, and they would come back the next day to take this verbal beating that they did not deserve, nobody deserves, just to try to go to school and get an education like the rest of us. When I look back on it, what I realize is I was doing it to make my friends laugh. It was more about making my buddies and my boys laugh than it was about hurting these girls or making them cry. But they would cry nearly every day. And as an adult, once I got out of high school, new friends, moved away, I couldn't find them to apologize because I couldn't remember their names. All I could remember was gruesome twosome, which is so disrespectful, but it's the truth. I couldn't remember their names. So I would ask people when I would go home if they had seen these girls or remembered their names, and I made no headway. But then 9 years ago, I have a little girl of my own, and it really hits home to where if my baby came home crying every day because of the way someone talked to her or treated her, I would not be happy at all. So that ignited a new fire under me to go talk to young people about my experiences. And it wasn't physical, it was all verbal and mental, but it was still bullying nonetheless. Then a couple years ago, a video comes out of a young man crying, asking why do people bully, and his mother's videoing him. And then it hit me as a father, how these girls' how their mother must have felt. In my mind's eye, I imagine them going home, opening the door to the apartment, mom sitting there, they're crying. Mom asks what's wrong, and they say nothing, and they go to their bedroom and try to deal with it themselves, which they shouldn't have done. If that was the scenario and they walked in the door and mom said what's wrong, and they would have said Michael's being mean to me, and their mother went to my mother, it would have stopped. My mom would have made sure of it. She would have spanked me. She would have grounded me. She would have done something, but it would have stopped. Unfortunately, that didn't happen. These young ladies tried to deal with it on their own, and whatever that was, however, dealing with it on your own, whatever that meant for them is what they did. Last December, I asked an old friend if she remembered their names, and she gave me maiden names, and I was able to track them down, fortunately, on Facebook, and was going to send them a message to apologize, explain what was going on, and tell them I'm sorry. So I send a message and I verify it's them. They both come back and say, yeah, you know, one of them said, hey, we were just talking about you last week. And I'm like, oh God, they've carried this for 30 years as I have. And so I send them the message to apologize, and I'm laying in my bed and I hear my phone go off, the alert. I couldn't look at it. I was terrified. I was like, oh my God, what if they say I hate you and you ruin my life, and what do I do then? If these girls have carried this for 30 years, I've had to carry the burden of doing it. But what if they've had to carry this and it's affected their life negatively? So I wake up the next morning and I muscle up the courage to look at it. And they both pretty much said the same thing. They said, we don't really remember you like that, and I'm sorry you've had to carry this so long. And it's funny, and the lesson I took from that was at 14, 15, I thought we were making fun of the weak. At 40, I realized I was the weak one. I could have stopped it. I could have not partaken in it. I could have stood up for these girls, but I chose to pile on because it was easy. I chose to pile on because I was making people who I thought were my friends laugh. So we end up, they accept my apologies. I started sharing this story. Then what I've realized most recently was what was really happening during this whole time was I was compromising my character. The character that my mother was instilling in me to respect people and protect people and always do what's right. I compromised that character to make people laugh at the expense of others. And you don't know the effect it had on them for a laugh. I mean, it's crazy. So I would encourage any young person watching this to learn from my mistakes, to be better than me, to not take the easy path, take the right path. Do what's right, it's always right. But learn from my mistakes. Feel free to share any of your stories in the comments. Share the video if you'd like, if you feel there's somebody that could use to hear this. And again, to Sarah and Sally, I'm sorry. I don't know what else to say other than I'm sorry. Thanks for watching.